Hello, everyone, and welcome to the One World Countless Stories podcast with me, Selina Novello. Today, I am very, very excited for my guest, Alana Bender. We were friends in elementary. We lived really close to each other, so we were like always on the bus together, and we just had in my opinion, such a unique relationship. And I always treasured it and remembered all of the memories. We have some really funny stories about things that we would do on the bus. And I still have some content on my flip phone from when we were really young, which is so hilarious. We have reconnected, and Alana has a very special, unique story and very inspiring story. So I'm very excited for you all to hear it today. Alana, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Selena. I really appreciate you inviting me to come on here. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to me that you think I have a special story. So thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, very, very excited. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, tell us anything that you feel is important for us to know about you.
Sure. I was born and raised I was born in Regina, Saskatchewan, but I'm from Cochrane, Alberta, and I've lived here for most of my life. And I've taken a path kind of after high school to go into broadcast news. And then I moved abroad to Australia for a year where I lived and worked out there. And now I'm back in Canada and kind of taking more of an entrepreneurial route.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm kind of figuring things out as I go here, but I'm really excited about my new journey and it's been really great so far.
Awesome. So let's start with the beginning of your story. So you said you were born in Regina and then you came to Cochrane, small town. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah, I had a great childhood. I played basically every sport you can imagine, and I was very close with my family, and I had really close friends. So I have parents, both a mother and a father, and then I have my brother and sister, Keely and Eric, and we actually played a lot of sports together. Our family used to go skiing as a family. We've just always been very close, and my parents really believed in putting us into sports when we were young to
Mhm.
teach us how to work as a team and to teach us how to work with other people, which I think really helped me with my development, especially in my entrepreneur journey now, just knowing how to work as a team, especially now that I'm kind of in a leadership role, working with a team all the time. I think I've learned a lot from my childhood, and that's kind of coming back into my present now.
Yeah, it's really cool when you look back at your childhood and see and compare it to where you are now and see what were the things that really played in how I act and am today. And the fact that you can assign that team leadership, that's amazing. And I think sports does do that to you. They get you in a group and you have to learn how to work with a group and become one unit to get the success, the outcome that you want. So, and I know what you're doing right now. So I think that it is really a really cool thing to make that connection in between your childhood and things. And I love to hear that your family was very close and you spent lots of time with them. And so moving through your story a little bit, how were you, what's the next part of your story? What comes next?
Well, growing up, I kind of didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I always
Mhm.
had a very entrepreneurial mindset.
Mhm.
So I actually ran quite a few businesses throughout my childhood, I guess you could
Mhm.
say, more so in my high school years. But I ran some of my own businesses, and my mom always kind of said to me that she thought I'd be a business owner of some sort or do some kind of entrepreneurship. And I didn't really know at that point if that was going to be true for me or that I could even do it. So I kind of had it in my mind that I either wanted to be a pilot or in broadcast news, being a news reporter like on TV. So I kind of took more of that route after graduating from grade 12. I took a broadcast news program with SATE and I really loved it while I was in it. But I moved to Australia and worked in the industry for about a year. And I just realized it's not something I could totally see myself loving my whole life. So I started a twin career on top of that. And that's kind of where my entrepreneurship journey came into play more so than before.
Mhm. That's amazing. The entrepreneurship journey is such a such a journey that kind of is stumbled upon, when you're younger and you kind of hear things about like, oh, what is a business owner? How do I run my own business? And when you don't have parents that are entrepreneurs, there's a little bit of that gap of like, how can I even make that a career? So there was a pivotal moment in your younger life that really changed your life that has also played a role in choosing to be an entrepreneur in your entrepreneurship. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that event and how it affected you in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 12 years old, I had a pretty life-altering event happen in the summer of grade 7 going into grade 8. I was really involved in cheerleading back then, and I was coming home from a cheerleading camp. And I was actually told by the coaches that I was going to have a tryout that night for their senior team. And being a 12-year-old, I was quite excited for that because it's all going to be like older girls who are a lot more experienced than me. But yeah, anyways, I had to get home between the cheer camp and the tryout that night just because it was quite a gap between it. So when I was driving home, I ended up getting in a very severe car accident with my sister. And it was quite bad. Like, I got airlifted from the scene by the STARS ambulance. I broke over 20 bones, including both my feet, all of my toes, both my
Mhm.
hips, my L4 vertebrae, lacerated my kidney, lacerated my liver. I got a TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury that took me kind of years to get over. And I had to do lots of cognitive therapy to also help me kind of get back to the point where I should have been, like in terms of my grade level and stuff, due to that brain injury. So I had to give up a lot of what I loved at a very young age just because of what I experienced. Because on top of the
Mhm.
car accident, I had years of complications with my hip. So I had to continuously get surgeries up until about grade 12. So, yeah, that was quite a pivotal moment in
Mhm.
my life just because I had to quit everything I knew and loved, which was sports and hanging out with friends and stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, it kind of just really impacted my relationships with people too. So I kind of felt like being at such a young age and having such a life altering event happen really made me kind of grow up quicker and
Mhm.
realize what I truly wanted out of life and who really mattered to me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask off of that, you came so close to death at such a young age. And so looking back, do you think that there was some major lessons around life and death that you gained because of your accident?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like my perspective on life kind of changed at a very young age. Just, I wasn't really supposed to survive that accident. Like, everybody that had talked to me in the hospital couldn't believe that I actually survived. Because if I was anywhere else in the car, they said it probably wouldn't have happened. Um,
Mhm.
so I just have always kind of felt like my purpose wasn't met yet and that I had more that I had to
Mhm.
do before like my time came.
Mhm.
So I really just feel like I've learned to not take anything for granted in life and to
Mhm.
always surround yourself with the people who matter the most. So for me, that's my
Mhm.
family and a couple close friends who have stuck with me through it thick and thin. But
Mhm.
another significant lesson I've learned is just the importance of empathy and compassion. Because I went through such a challenging recovery, it really deepened my understanding of caring for others who are going through similar events. Just in a time of such like traumatic things happening, it can really make the difference of the world to somebody to just have a helping hand there, somebody that can kind of understand what they're going through.
Mhm. I think that's such an important thing to learn and to have a deep understanding of empathy in that situation. And, you're right. You still had a lot of life to live. You were, maybe you weren't supposed to make it, but you're like, no, I'm coming through. You're like, you can't stop me. I'm coming back. Don't
No.
worry. And fought through it. But the recovery, to what I understand, it took a long time. So do you want to share a little bit about what that did to you on the mental health side of
Yeah.
recovering, and you're like relearning so many different things about your body that were taken away?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I kind of just had it in my head right after the initial car accident, being just a 12-year-old who wouldn't let anything affect them and just thought they were invincible. I just was like, oh, I'm going to bounce back from this. I'll be back in sports here and maybe a couple months. And I was actually talking to my cheer coaches over text back then, being like, hey, like, I'll be back in a few months. I promise. Like, I'll be there for that tryout, just so motivated and ambitious to do it. And obviously, that wasn't quite how that went. I had about another 6 years of recovery that was not seen before that point. None of us could have seen that coming.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of had some failed surgeries. I had the pins break out of my hip after my first initial surgery.
Mhm.
So when I was supposed to be getting those pins out, I was actually getting more put in because they
Wow.
initially had it in their heads that like I would be getting those pins out about 3 to 4 months after having them put in. But at that mark,
Mhm.
we realized that they actually broke out of my hip and that I needed more surgeries.
Wow.
So that was kind of the start of that journey. I had it break out 3 times, and then I had or 2 times, and then I had a partial hip replacement, and then most recently a full hip replacement. So that was only done in 2019, and the accident was in 2015. So
Wow.
it was quite a long recovery period, which is why I think it did affect me so much mentally. Just it wasn't like the
Mhm.
car accident happened, I healed, and it was done. It was kind of an ongoing event for the next 5 to 8 years. So
Mhm.
um yeah, it took a big toll on me mentally to the point that I was pulled out of school. I had to
Mhm.
take a year off just to focus on recovery, and I wasn't even doing any school that year for my grade 8 year.
Mhm.
And then I ended up switching schools in grade 9, and I kind of did a hybrid model of online and in person just so I could
Mhm.
take stuff like math and science at my own pace because that's the part of my brain that was affected with the brain injury.
Mhm.
So I had to take extra summer courses, extra courses during the school year just to catch up to my grade level, which did affect me a lot mentally, especially because I didn't have any outlet. Like cheerleading and hanging out with my friends used to be my outlet to get away from everything, and that was
Mhm.
completely taken away from me. So I had to relearn kind of how I could let go and relax. Um, and that was very hard for me. I didn't really have anything I could go to
Mhm.
until probably grade 10 or 11 when I started kind of making new connections in high school. I just found, yeah, I lost a lot of friends throughout that healing journey, which wasn't necessarily anyone's fault but my own, just kind of pushing people away.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of how it affected me mentally.
Yeah, the thing that I see in your journey is this just immense determination. You are like, I'm gonna get like right after surgery, I'm gonna get back in, and you are so strong and have that determination in you. And I was wondering because it could have been very easy for you to just give up. Honestly, you were mentally because it's like all odds were against you. Things just kept not working out. So, what do you feel? Where was that coming from? Where did the term determination come from? Where was that? What was the mindset that you adopted through these hard times?
Honestly, the biggest thing I found that kind of helped me was reaching out to my parents about how I was really feeling. Because it wasn't
Mhm.
until about halfway through what would have been my grade 8 year that I opened up to my parents saying that, like, I was struggling immensely with anxiety and suicidal thoughts. And yeah,
Mhm.
it wasn't easy. But I find that the biggest thing that helped was just reaching out to people and getting the help I needed. So I went through lots of therapy.
Mhm.
And that kind of helped me just realize there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel because for
Mhm.
years I kind of had doctors warning me that, there is a possibility you could be in a wheelchair the rest of your life and you have to accept that. And
Wow.
being like between the ages of 12 to 15, that was not something that I wanted to even consider. So I just really had a goal of proving those doctors and nurses wrong and continuously doing my physio, my chiropractic appointments, just getting healthy. And I think a huge thing for me too was just my family. They were a huge motivator for me. I didn't want them to see me upset because I already knew how upset they were. So it
Mhm.
really took a lot of me. And I think that's why it took me so long to ask for help, is just I didn't want them to
Mhm.
see me hurting because I knew they were hurting.
Right.
But yeah, reaching out to help, I think, is just something that nobody should be ashamed of. Yeah, I think that reaching out to help is something that nobody should be ashamed of, and that it can truly change your life and help you for the better.
Yeah. And people around you love you and want to help you and support you in any way that they can, even if there is that temporary, you're you it sounds like you adopted, like, you want to protect their feelings. You were like thinking like, I don't want them to see me like this, but you were very courageous and very strong to be able to say like, I'm not doing okay. I need help. And then to go and actually get the help is super huge. And I just hope that you like are proud of yourself for that, because it's not
Oh,
easy. It's not easy to get the help. It really isn't. A lot of people struggle silently, and to, come on this podcast and share this and say like I had to get help is going to be a lifeline to so many people, to normalize that it's okay that you're not doing okay, because we all go through hard things. Like yours was a very life altering event and very extreme, but that doesn't mean that, other people's things aren't as big. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I'm just saying in general, if somebody's listening to this and they're feeling that way in any way, the message is reach out, get help, and get the support that you need, because there is people around you that love you, want you here, and want to be that support. So I just thank you so much for sharing that and opening up about that. And throughout your healing process, I mean, I think healing it's never linear, it's all over the place. How did you deal with the PTSD that came along with, being in cars and, keep living, trying to live as normal as you can through having this experience?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, one of the biggest things I had to get over in terms of the PTSD was the fact that the car accident happened right by my home, because I had to pass that scene every day. And to this day, it does affect me just seeing it. And it honestly, I feel for my family more than I feel for myself when I see like the car
Mhm,
accident scene, just because
mhm,
I was knocked unconscious during the accident where my whole family saw the situation. And like, I just can't even imagine how my sister felt and everything too.
mhm,
Um, so honestly, I think the main thing that got me over my PTSD was just kind of exposure therapy. I
mm,
tried to not blame myself for like the way I was sitting in the car. I was trying not to blame anybody, not no drivers, nothing like that. I just
mhm.
think it was a fluke, the incident. It couldn't have been prevented. Like, it's just one of those
Yeah.
things that was a pure accident. And I just acknowledge that it could happen to anybody. But
Mhm,
also just going through some exposure therapy with a therapist, such as just listening to siren sounds, kind of working through it. I found art therapy was the biggest thing that helped me, just kind of
mm,
drawing while I opened up about my feelings, because I worked with a few different therapists and it really just didn't click with me. And it honestly brought up more kind of bad feelings for me with a lot of them just talking about it, where I
mhm,
found if I could kind of incorporate art into the therapy, it took my head off of what I was talking about. Well, I
mhm,
could kind of open up some more. So that was one of the really big things that kind of helped me get over the PTSD, but also just understanding that it happens so rarely, a severe accident like that. And the statistic of it happening again is so rare. It's just,
yeah,
it was a pure fluke. And yeah, just having empathy for it. Like, I know it wasn't anybody's fault. It couldn't have been prevented. And just kind of
mhm.
going forward in life, just thinking that way too.
Yeah, taking it one day at a time. And I love what you said there around, not punishing yourself and not telling yourself that it's your fault. And really that aligns with like forgiving yourself and forgiving others and continuing that. And so the fact that you're doing the work, getting out there and, one therapist doesn't work, you go to the next one, figure out what does work for you, because each individual is going to have such different results and need to do such different things. But the fact that you were able to find these tools that worked for you is so amazing. And just giving it a go to, be open to it, be open to, I want to move through this. How can I do it? And not knowing that you don't have to do it alone. There's professionals who can help you get through that. So again, I just think it's so empowering to hear that, you just continue to do the work physically, mentally, and there's probably bumps along the road, but you just kept going and just kept being you throughout the whole process, which is so inspiring. So going back to your entrepreneurship journey, and I know this kind of ties in, you started a little company when around the when you were in grade 9 or something. I forget. You created.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So it was kind of like a thing my mom and I originally did together just for fun as I was recovering through the car accident. And
Mhm.
that was just making bath bombs at the house. We would just, yeah, we found like a recipe online and we'd try out different ones with different ingredients. And then it was kind of like for friends and families' birthdays and stuff, we'd start adding them into their birthday gifts. And it ended up being that a lot of people really liked them and wanted to actually buy them from us. So
Mhm.
I ended up making a little page. I had like a website and then I had a Facebook page, and I sold a lot of them on Facebook Marketplace. And then I also went to farmers markets and stuff like that with my mom. I really appreciate her kind of helping me with that push at the beginning, especially with that little entrepreneurial journey.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of how that one started. And then it kind of evolved into gift baskets because selling bath bombs, while it was good and I made some pretty good money from it at such a young age, I just found if I could kind of add, some spa products in there, or
Mm-hmm.
some little like men's baskets and stuff, that I could make more profits from that. So I kind of evolved that bath bomb company to a gift basket company. And then from there, I started working with a hair and skincare company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of pushed the bath bomb and gift basket stuff to the side just because it was easier to run through an online company where I didn't have to source everything and then, put it
Mm-hmm.
all together and everything. It was just more kind of tailored to being you run the business but don't have to do everything hands on.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, from there I kind of started doing what I'm doing now.
Right, right, awesome. So throughout that kind of journey, what is some of the like key moments that you remember? Some key like highlight moments, whether that's like lessons, whether that's really good things that happened or like really bad things that happened within that entrepreneurship journey.
I think one of the biggest things I remember is just having the courage to start. I was so
Mm,
nervous to get started, but if there's anybody that wants to run a business, my biggest advice to them is just start somewhere because you're never going to be ready. And honestly, you learn so much as you go and you learn it very quickly. So if there's something you want to do, just do it, give it a try, and you'll learn as you go.
I want to just talk about this, stay here for a little bit because
Mhm.
I think that's such a valuable piece of advice. Everyone's like, even me, it's like you get stuck in the how. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make it happen? But the best thing is to rip that band aid off and just start somewhere, even if it's super small, super part time. But just to start. And you made the comment of, you're never going to feel ready because a lot of us are like, well, when I like graduate from this, or when I like finish this season of my life, like when I'm here, then I'll do it, like, and it never happens. You're just going to keep pushing it off and off and off, and the best way to learn something is by doing it. And I like to think I used to be afraid of failure, but now I'm like, you want to fail fast and then learn from it, pivot, keep going, because that's the where the learning is. Like I always learn the most from when I fail something versus when I succeed at something. Like obviously you want to succeed sometimes, but there's definitely that, you just want to like fail and learn. So I'm wondering if you have any other comments around that. If somebody was like seriously like didn't know what to start with, what would you say to them?
Honestly, I totally agree with you. Failure is the best way to learn because you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. There's a quote I heard actually where you'll remember something negative 40 times more than something positive. So I feel like if you do something that you are learning from, you're going to remember that way more than if you're just being successful all the time. And you're going to be able to help people more too. Because if you had a perfect journey, people are just going to think you're lucky and that it's all because of luck. Where if you're having a journey where you have your ups and downs, with like most business owners or entrepreneurial, like most business owners or entrepreneurs do, people are going to learn from both your highs and your lows because mostly nobody has a perfect road, and that's okay.
Yeah, there's no manual that's like, this is how you have to run your life. This is how you have to run your business. Like it's very open to just to you. It's open to you. There's a lot of decisions you get to make. So I love that topic. And the second part of that question was really just like big moments in your entrepreneurship journey, whether those were like really difficult or like really amazing moments throughout that journey.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest moments in my entrepreneurial journey that I can kind of think of off the top of my head was just making my first sale.
Mhm.
Just kind of having that sense of accomplishment that I was actually able to do it on my own. That was huge. And that's still something that I've carried through multiple of my businesses. Yeah, taking it back to when I was in college, I felt pretty happy with what I was doing, but I wasn't 100% excited or satisfied with it. So that's
Mhm,
when I decided to kind of take my current entrepreneurship journey in as a twin career. And I
mhm,
just find that something I can tell people is to, again, just give it a go. Like, you never know if it's going to work for you or if it's not going to work for you until you try it. And it can honestly change your life for the better.
mhm.
Some really good things that have happened to me from that is I was able to make my twin career into a full time career. So I'm now 100% into my entrepreneurship journey right now. I'm
Mhm,
not in broadcast news anymore. So that's something
mhm.
that's been really good for me. And that would have never happened if I didn't just step up and give it a go.
Let's take it back a little bit. I actually want to like break down into like your college and everything. So
Yeah.
you're starting your business and you've done the basket thing, you started doing some um skin products, some hair products, and then you decide to do the broadcasting. So why did you decide to do that? Was that something that like just stumbled upon your lap? What was the motivation behind doing that?
Yeah, so for broadcast news, I was in grade 12, kind of deciding what I wanted to go into. I had a little bit of interest in going into interior design.
Mm,
But the thing with that is, I hated math. And in order for me to get accepted into that program, I had to take more math classes. And being that I kind of had to take so much math lessons over the years to catch up to my grade level again, I was just at that point in my life not going to do that. So I
mhm,
started looking at some other courses that I could potentially be interested in just because I was going to follow the traditional route of, going to high school and then going to university and then getting a job at a university. So I actually stumbled across a YouTube channel, and the girl that was posting these videos was a news reporter, and I really enjoyed her daily vlogs of kind of what she did in a day in a life. So I started
mhm,
looking at programs for how I could become a news reporter, and I stumbled across SATE, and I also looked at BCIT and some other places in Canada. But SATE was the highest rated one, so I decided to look into their application program. And one of the steps for their application was to essentially job shadow a
mm,
true station to see if it's something you actually want to do. So I went to Global News, and I ended up watching an evening show that Joel Senek was covering for Linda Olson. And that kind of just made me really want to do it.
mhm,
Being behind the scenes and just seeing how it all comes together really inspired me. So I applied for the broadcast news program. I got accepted, and I was at school for 2 years for that. And then I moved to Australia and I worked in the industry for 1 year.
mhm,
But yeah, it's just kind of when I was in school and working in the industry for a year, it kind of got repetitive for me, especially the work
mm,
I was doing just with the radio station. So I ended up just deciding to do a twin career to see if it's something I would want to shift into and kind of keep broadcast news on the back burner. But
mhm.
ever since I've shifted over to my finance job that I'm doing now, I've just fallen in love with it so much more that I kind of don't have a plan B anymore. Like, this is kind of it for
Right,
me.
right. And in that too, like there's this theme, there's this topic of like, and I've been kind of playing with this in myself, when we're in high school, they ask us like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? So, to kind of continue down this conversation of different careers and everything, what would you say is one of the hardest things for you? Because it's very hard to go against the traditional, against the beaten path. Is there anything that like you have had to overcome mentally? Because I know in my entrepreneurship journey and in my journey, it's like there's been a lot of mental stuff that I've had to overcome of like, what is normal? So I'm
Yeah,
wondering if
totally.
you have any of those experiences as being a young business owner.
I honestly think the biggest thing I had to get over mentally was just the opinion of others.
Mm,
Especially with my first couple of businesses, I really cared about what other people thought. And I know a large way to run your business nowadays is through social media. So by
mhm,
posting on social media, well, it's a great way to expose your business to many people, especially like your warmer markets. You're obviously going to get a lot of criticism from people who maybe say they support you but don't really support you. So just getting over that and kind of realizing who was actually good for me and who was really there to support me and to be there for me when times were hard versus the people who I just kind of need to ignore and kind of take out
Mhm.
of my life. That was one of the biggest things that I learned so far through my entrepreneur journey is just, yeah, get over the opinion of others. The sooner you can do
Mhm.
that, the quicker you're going to involve in your businesses. And the quicker you're going to find your people, because there are people out there that will support you and they're going to be in your circle and you're going to learn from them and you can teach them as well. But yeah, you won't be able to find those people unless you kind of start putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I love that as well. I think that's such an important message. And if someone is listening right now and they have had this, desire to post, because I know that's like definitely a theme. They have the desire to post, they want to share a new idea, something new, a new business, but they are in that position where you were a couple years ago of just like, I really care about what other people think. I'm really stressed. What would you tell them in that moment, or like how could they take an action step to get over that? I know it's like very much like you just got to do it, rip the band-aid off, but in a little bit of a coaching way, what would you say to that individual?
Honestly, I think just starting small. Something I did with my first business when I was really scared of some of my people that I was just like, oh, I'm definitely going to get judged by this person, is I'd literally just go through my settings and restrict some people from seeing my story or remove some people as followers. And as you go on through your entrepreneurship journey, you're going to realize you don't have to do that as much and you'll build that
Mhm.
confidence where you just don't care what other people think. But if you're that nervous to get started and you really want to start posting, honestly, just remove the people that you're worried about that are going to judge you, or start talking to people that are going to be there to support you, because there will be people who have gone through that exact same situation and they'll have advice for you too. But I
Mhm.
honestly think the biggest thing is just kind of cancel out the noise and negativity and just start small. Even if it's just like maybe you're not comfortable talking on video yet, but you're comfortable putting up a static post that's just some text, you can start like that and you'll gradually be able to show your face more, talk more. But just starting somewhere. And if you're really nervous about certain people, just remove them, because
Mhm.
they're not going to support you at the end of the day, anyways. So you may as well build a community that is going to support you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And yeah, it's like get rid of the people that you're afraid of. There's a lot of ways you can remove them without completely unfollowing and there's lots of little sneaky things that you can do nowadays. But yeah, at some point you gotta start, or else
Exactly.
it will always be an idea inside of your brain. So in your new business, what is some of the exciting things going on that's happening for you, and why you're passionate about being in the financial industry?
I'm really passionate about this business because I kind of firsthand saw my parents' passion through this business, as they're the ones that brought me into this. And I've just seen firsthand their client success stories, some families that wouldn't have made it financially in Canada if it wasn't for them stepping in to help them as financial educators. And I just feel like this career choice is so deeply meaningful to me because of that impact that I can have on my clients' lives. So I've
Mhm.
had the witness again of kind of seeing those firsthand stories of just families being saved, relationships being saved, child's education plans being able to be put into place so that they can reach their goals of their like university dreams or their scholarship dreams if they're playing sports, all those kind of things. In a nutshell, I chose to be a financial advisor because I see how profound it can be, just affecting people's lives in a positive way. And I know how much it can help families going through crises like such as fires, burning down houses right now in Kelowna, or if
Mhm.
somebody gets in a life-threatening car accident or God forbid dies in a car accident, families are protected so that they can properly grieve and they can take time off work and get back on their feet, or take a little vacation to get away from everything for a bit. Just we have a mission statement of leaving no family left behind, and that's something that serves huge meaning to me in the work that I do. And honestly, it's what inspires me to get up every day and get to work. I know what we do helps so many people that I just don't have that procrastination in me anymore where I just want to lay in bed and slack off, because I know there's people out there that need to hear what we have to say, and there's people out there to be helped who don't know what we're doing yet. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think financial literacy is so important. And it's definitely something that, again, another thing that is just not done in school, in our school system, is like even just the basics of like, this is how you need to protect your money. This is how you ensure, like, invest your money. And it's like some simple things going even back to like, how do you use a credit card? How, like, there's very simple things in the financial industry that are not teaching. So I think it's like a huge need. And again, the mission of no family left behind, that is so powerful because so many people, especially with the way that our world has been the last 3 years, they need that lifeline. They need a plan to get them to where they want to be so they can live their life the way that they want to live it. So I think the work that you're doing right now is just absolutely amazing. And I hope it turns into whatever you want it to turn into, and is super successful and you can help lots of families in that.
Thank you, Selena. I appreciate that a lot.
Is there anything else about your entrepreneurship journey that you want to touch on before we move into my favorite topic of travel? Is there anything else that you want to share about your entrepreneurship journey or advice to any entrepreneurs out there, young entrepreneurs?
Hmm. Honestly, I feel like one of the biggest things that I could give as some advice to a young entrepreneur is if you're looking to start the entrepreneurship journey, but you don't necessarily know if you want to be fully independent, if you want to go with a company, if you want to try something, just try something. Like you can start anywhere and you can switch at any time. If you try something out and you learn a little bit from it, you can honestly transfer those skills to any entrepreneurship, any business, anything you want to do. So it's good to always just start somewhere. And then if it's not necessarily what you love, but you know you want to be a business owner or you know you want to be an entrepreneur, you can always try different things. And that's okay. Like you don't have to be ashamed if you decide to pivot to a new career within entrepreneurship, per se. Like you can
Mhm.
always try different things within the entrepreneurship role. You don't have to feel like just because you're with one company or just because you're with one business that that's what you have to be stuck doing. You can always switch and try out different things as well.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. And two, in that, like, if one business fails, it doesn't mean your next one's going to fail. You know, now you have a different set of tools in the approach to your next one. And I think that's really aligns with what your message is. So thank you for sharing that. Because, yeah, there's so many different options of ways to become an entrepreneur, whether you want to do it all from scratch yourself or if you want to join an organization, a company. There's just so many options out there. So yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. So to kind of move into my favorite topic, like I said, travel. Can you tell us all the things that travel has done for you? So you said, just to kind of bring people up to where we are. So you said that you went to Australia for a year to pursue your broadcasting. But in
Yes.
that traveling, oh, I love travel so much. It gets me so excited because there is just this profound thing about seeing the world and traveling and pushing yourself to get outside of your hometown. So why don't you share a little bit about your travel experience in Australia with us?
Yeah, I mean, going a little bit back
Oh yeah.
further than Australia, I guess, is my dad has been a pilot for all of my life. So I've always just had this passion for travel and just seeing the world. And that
Mhm.
was kind of built thanks to my parents. So I can accredit that to them. Being that they brought us on a lot of vacations. We've gone to Hawaii, we've gone to Ireland, all over the States, all over
Mhm.
Canada. And there's so many more places that we have on our bucket list individually and as a family. Um, so yeah, Australia was always somewhere that I dreamed of going to. And it kind of started that dream, especially in grade 10 and 11 when I was going through some hard stuff with my car accident recovery. I was just kind of looking for an escape. And I guess that was
Mhm.
kind of an outlet for me back then, too, is just looking at places I could go and kind of escaping through my computer.
Yeah.
So Australia was somewhere I really researched a lot. And I was actually planning with one of my good friends, Anna, back in the day. We had like a little Pinterest board where we would put stuff about Australia on there. And it was always my dream to go. I never really knew if it would happen. Um, but yeah, it ended up being that I had the opportunity to go. Um, because of school, I had to find an internship, and I decided to be a bit
Mhm.
of an overachiever instead of just going to CTV or Global or something in Alberta. I was like, hey, to my professor, and I said, would it be okay if I applied to some in Australia? And she was kind of just like, I mean, you can, but they're probably not going to accept you. And I've always had that drive in myself where I'm like, if there is
Mhm.
a will, there's a way, and I'm going to make
Yeah.
that happen. So I ended up reaching out to like every single radio station and television station within the small city I was living in, which was kind of hard because there's only about 6 of them.
Mhm.
And yeah, most of them said they couldn't take international students. But once I
Mm.
got there and I was graduated and had my diploma and everything to reach out and I could maybe get work with them. But obviously, that wasn't what I needed. So I
Right.
just kept trying and trying. And I ended up finding some great mentors out there who were my news directors. And they ended up accepting me with their online radio station. So I ended
Mm.
up getting to go out there to work, which kind of made my dream come true. And then I also have my Australian boyfriend, which helped too because him and his family took me in for a year so that I could live with them while working. So
Awesome.
yeah, the opportunity just kind of fell into place, and I almost feel like that was manifestation from back in the day when I was
Mm.
younger, making those Pinterest boards and just talking about it and everything. But Australia was my first trip that I got to do kind of independently, and that was fully planned by me. So that one will always have such a huge like impact on my life, and I'll always hold that
Mm.
feeling with me. Just the first time in my life where I'm like, "Okay, this is what I really want right now and this is what I'm going to like make happen." And then just planning the steps to make it happen was huge too.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about when there's that power to it. You like going on family trips, it's like, yeah, it's great, it's fun, it's amazing. But there's something about when you like plan your own trip, you make something that you wanted so badly happen. You do it on your own, you figure it out, you get it done. There's just like so much empowerment that happens inside of you, and there's also a deeper I think appreciation. That's what I've noticed too, where you're just like really just like a sponge, just a sponge of like, oh my gosh, soaking it all in. Not that you wouldn't do it on other vacations, but it's just
Yeah.
it is a different type of travel. And so the fact that you could like work and travel is absolutely amazing. What do you think is like one of the biggest things you learned about yourself through travel?
One of the biggest things that I've learned myself is just honestly trusting myself.
Mm.
Sometimes I would go through a bit of anxiety, being like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I can't do this. I should have stayed at home where it's safe in my little comfort zone. But getting
Yeah.
out of my comfort zone and knowing that like my higher self knew this was what I needed to do and just trusting that
Mhm.
intuition has really led me through more than just Australia, but a lot of different aspects in my life, just being able to grow from those experiences. I think one of the biggest things about my journey in Australia is I did lots of my traveling with my boyfriend and my best friend out there. But when I went to Sydney, I was completely on my own. And I was so
Mhm.
scared. I could have stayed in my hotel room. I could have just stayed around the area, gone to like a couple restaurants, maybe went to a couple shops and stuff. But I decided, I was like, okay, I'm here and I don't know when I'm going to be back here. So what I'm going to do is have my phone on, tell my parents where I am, and I'm just going to go explore. Like, have no
Mhm.
plan, just go explore. So I ended up taking a ferry to the other side of Sydney. I went on public transit, which was totally new grounds for me. Like, I've been blessed here in Canada having always my own car. My parents drive me places. So learning how to take public transit in a new country was kind of scary, but I honestly
Yeah.
grew so much from that because now I feel confident with that too. And I just feel like you got to trust your gut and you know that you're going to learn so much from it. So
Mhm.
just give it a go. Like, honestly, what's the worst thing that, I mean, we know the world's a little dangerous now, so always be in
Yeah.
contact with the people that are close to you and that are safe. Um, but yeah, I mean, Australia is a relatively very safe country, and as long
Yeah.
as you make smart decisions and you know you do the right
Yeah.
things, you'll be fine.
Totally. I'm always like, yeah, like traveling's great, but like also there's a very like yeah, there's like a very you have to make smart choices but also like I find too, it's so easy to focus on the bad of what's going on around you,
Yes.
but there is so much good. There is so many good people, and when you let yourself go into that and really, not be completely naive and but like still that there is so many beautiful people and so many beautiful experiences out there. You just have to look for them. Just like you look for the bad ones, you got to look for the good ones. And I think, yeah, when you can travel whether you're in a group or by yourself. I mean, I feel, because my experience traveling by yourself, you learn that trust in yourself a lot quicker. Like, it happens a lot faster
Absolutely.
because it's like, okay, there's nobody to talk through this with, or there's nobody else here to help me make the decision. And it sounds so simple, but like, and something that to someone in like Europe or in Australia that take public transit all the time would be like, what are you talking about? But it is that really big moment of like your first time where you're like, we're both from a small town, so there wasn't any public transportation to begin with. But when you go to the bigger cities, there is. But it's like something that's so little but so profound. When you do it yourself, there's just this, you become proud of yourself and be like, yeah, I just did that. And, I'm still here, I'm alive, thriving. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
definitely this really cool way to strengthen that trust that you speak of, and strengthen the intuition and trusting new intuition, and following that. And so I think that's just, it's so amazing to
Aw,
be able
thank
to
you.
experience that. Is there anything else about Australia that like you really want to share, or anything?
Um, Honestly, one of the biggest things about Australia, I loved Australia, don't get me wrong, like, it was such a big thing in my life, but visiting home at my 6-month mark when I was over there for a year is something that, like, I'll always remember that feeling because I had so many complications getting back home. I was so stressed, I was crying at the airport. Traveling alone is kinda scary, especially internationally, and it was, like, my second time
Mhm.
ever doing it because my first was getting there. But coming home to visit after, like, a 24-hour journey with no sleep and, just completely, like, scared and on my own, being able to reconnect with my family and having them waiting for me at the airport with my puppies and just being
Mhm.
able to hug them again and, just be in their presence again was such a huge thing for me, and I'll never forget that feeling. It just Yeah, it was a huge deal for me, and it made me appreciate what I have back home so much more when I didn't have it with me in Australia, because while I had a great time over there are some times where you just wanna, have the little things, like your whole wardrobe or somebody to
Yeah.
talk to in your family. I can't explain the level of happiness returning home, how it feels, especially after being gone for
Mhm.
a long time. Being that I've never moved out before, having that
Mhm.
6-month visit just was huge for me, and yeah, it also just made me realize that even though it was daunting at times living across the world, everything is temporary if you want it to be.
Mhm.
Like, all you have to do is get a plane ticket, and realistically, you could be back home the
Yeah.
next day. So
Yeah.
that was a huge realization for me, not even just in traveling, but in every aspect of my life, just knowing that everything is temporary if you want it to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. And I love that, because there is that, deep sense of like, yeah, you moved out for the first time, but you didn't just like move to a different town. You moved across the world. And so like that's pretty crazy. Like, that's, you got to give yourself some kudos for that. But there is that thing about traveling where, it looks amazing. It is amazing, but that's not 100%, it's not always, there's always these little dips and things. I can remember moments in my travels to Europe a year and a bit ago where I was literally like crying and things weren't working out. And then the next couple days, things were working out, everything's fine. You learn how to let go and go through things, but it's very real where there's like those little things that you start to miss. Like, yeah, just like I guess the normalcy of your everyday life. The wardrobe couldn't relate to anything more in my life, because it's like, hey, I'm living out of this backpack. Cool.
Literally.
I'm a girl who likes my clothes. Like, I think that's just like such a real thing of like, travel is amazing, it's beautiful, but then it also creates this gratitude for what you do have, and for the people who are around you and are there and who love you and are supporting you from, even if it's across the world. So I think that's a very beautiful lesson of just like gratitude, and yeah, just like going through the motions of leaving home, coming back, and just choosing to be grateful about all the experiences, which is so beautiful.
Aw, thanks, Selena. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
excited to hear all about your Australia journey and then see how you feel when you come home because you're going for 3 months?
Yeah, 2 and a bit, 2 and a
2
bit,
and a
so
bit.
not 3,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be super exciting and super crazy, and so I'm excited for that. So
Yes.
before we wrap up, go to the final four questions. Is there
Mhm.
anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to share before we move into those final four?
Um, Honestly, if anybody's going to Australia, the Great Barrier Reef is where it's at. That was by far my favorite place in all of Australia, to the point that I went there 2 times
Yeah.
on like big trips in the year I was there. So definitely check out the Great Barrier Reef. That was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. The snorkeling is amazing out there. And honestly, that's the place. It's like the Canmore or the Banff of Australia.
Mm,
There's tourists everywhere. Everybody's so friendly. If you want to make friends, Airlie Beach is a great place to make them, because that's the gateway to get to the Great Barrier Reef. Obviously, it's in the middle of the ocean. So,
mhm.
yeah, great. The Great Barrier Reef and Airlie Beach is my favorite parts of Australia. So, I'd highly recommend that to everybody visiting. And then, yeah, Brisbane, Gold Coast,
Oh,
all that
yeah.
stuff too is also beautiful. Those are some of my favorite places.
Yeah, it's actually such a big country. Like, you don't think about it until you actually start doing research about going there, and I'm like,
No,
ooh, it's a that's a big place. I don't think I'm gonna get to see it all in 2 months. But it's
no.
like you don't realize that until you actually like do the research. I feel like probably people coming to Canada think the same thing. You know, they hear about like the Banff, and then they like actually do research, and it's like, damn, Canada's big. But
Yeah, no,
honestly, I
that's
also
something I realized too.
yeah, it's funny to think about how people think about Canada. It's just it's funny. It makes me laugh sometimes because we're like, "Oh, Europe, Australia," and they're like, "Ooh, Canada."
Yeah.
It's
Well,
so funny.
I have my best friend from Australia. She's visiting in October and November, and just hearing the things she said, just being like excited to visit here when it's such normal things for us, kind of
Mhm,
just great brings back that gratefulness for kind of how I felt when I was over there and missed stuff, and then realizing like you really do take things for granted that other people have never met. Like, we always complain about the snow and stuff, but then there's Australians who've never seen snow, or people from all over the world who come here just to see the mountains that are like right in our backyard. So,
mhm,
yeah, it's
it's too
nice to kind
crazy.
of see that perspective.
Totally. Awesome. Well, let's go into our four final questions. So these, if you need a minute to think about them, some of them, they can be a little a little bit big picture kind of questions in a way. But yeah, they're pretty easy. Whatever comes to you in the moment is the best kind of way to answer them. So the first question is, what is the best piece of advice you've received and why?
Hmm. Honestly, I think the best piece of advice I've ever received is, if you want something in life, just go for it. That's kind of something I've always lived for.
Mhm,
Um, because there can always be things in your head where you're going to go, oh, I can't do it because of this or this excuse. And honestly, the only way you're ever going to get over that is just trying new things. And you'll never experience a full life if you don't go out there and try the things that you're scared of that are outside of your comfort zone. So if there's something you want, just go out and do it.
Oh, I love it. That needs to be, like, screamed from the rooftops. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
next one is if you had to give your younger self a piece of advice or someone in the younger generation, however you wanna look at it, what would that piece of advice be?
My biggest piece of advice for my younger self, I think, would be to just try new things and really live in the present. I feel like I was always
Mm,
kind of focusing on the future and, oh, like what's to come next, and just worrying about everything that hasn't happened yet, where I didn't always fully give myself the chance to immerse myself in the moment. Um, and I think you just need to sometimes disconnect from like thinking of,
mm,
oh, what's tomorrow, what's next week, what's next year, 5 years from now, and really just focus on like this day in the present, and what you want to get done this
mm,
day and what your goals are. So just not living life too quick or wishing time away is the biggest thing, but also
mhm.
just trying everything and not really caring what others think were kind of the biggest things I wish I could tell my younger self.
Yeah, I think those are really important lessons, and I think it's funny because as kids, we wanna grow up so fast. We're like, "Ooh, 16, driver's license. Okay, cool. 18, I wanna be an adult." And then it's like, "Whoa, 21? Cool, now we're legal everywhere." And then it's like, "Ew." adulting
Yeah.
a little bit of like we were, a lot of, I don't know if this is true for you, but I was like so quick to grow up and I was like, I want it. And in that you lose that present moment. And it's so easy. I've talked about this lots. It's so easy to get distracted because we have our phones, we have entertainment literally in our hands. So it's so easy to get so distracted. But when you can truly do what you said and disconnect and be present, I think that that is where some real magic comes in and you can, yeah, it's a really beautiful way to live your life in the
Yeah.
present moment. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next one. How do you define success?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like I would define success kind of just based on the feeling of within. Like if you're feeling confident with what you're doing and you're happy, then who's to say like that's not success, you know? I know
Mm-hmm.
success looks different to everybody and it's kind of something that's very personal. Um, but yeah, honestly, I feel like success could look so different to so many different people that as long as you're happy and you're feeling accomplished at the end of the day, I think that's success in itself. Just,
Mm-hmm.
having that feeling of you've done enough or you feel like you gave it your all. So that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of my feeling of
Yeah.
success.
I love it. And I just recently started asking this question because I love that, it brings this different awareness to be like, oh yeah, success doesn't have to be what my friend's definition of success is. And just hearing that there is different versions of success and it is so customizable to what you want. And some people want that like mansion, fancy cars, all these things, but sometimes you want that, but you're like, hold on, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
That's not actually what I want. And so I asked that question to, challenge the people who are listening to this as well to really think about like, how do you see success? Like, this is how Alana sees success, but like, how do you see it? And just start that conversation of like redefining it and making it your very own. So I love how you answered that question.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So, final question. This is one of my favorite questions because I love to end the interview in a state of gratitude. So,
Mhm.
what are you grateful for?
Ooh, I'm grateful for a lot of things, but I feel like I'm super grateful for those who are around me, that I surround myself, like my five closest people in my life, my family, my friends, you for bringing me on this podcast. Yeah, I'm so grateful for everybody who's positive in my life and just, for having a shelter, for having a roof over my head, the
Yeah.
ability to kind of choose my own life and not feel like I have anybody else telling me what I need to do. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of things I'm grateful for in my life, but I think family is a huge one for me. Just I feel like I wouldn't be what I am today if it wasn't for my parents and for my brother and sister just constantly kind of being there for me, especially when times
Mhm.
are hard. So yeah,
Mhm.
there's lots I'm grateful for, but especially just the people
Definitely.
closest to me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and getting very vulnerable and helping us understand things that you went through. And it's hard to talk about these things, but when we open up, there's this magic that happens and there can be a line of hope that is created by sharing. So I really appreciate how deep you got and how you shared your story. And we're really vulnerable about all the lessons and the highs and the lows and everything that's happened in your life. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to sit with me and chat about your story.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me on, Selena. I really appreciate you reaching out and to think I'm inspiring enough to be on here.
Yes, yes, you are. All right.
Thank you.